Easy E, how are we?
Seán, hey, what's happening?
Oh, where are my manners? Sorry, ladies first. Rachel, how are we? And welcome back to the Any Given Runday Podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to be back. What have I missed?
So much.
I'm joking. I've been listening. I've been keeping up to date.
I tell you what,
I had
Rachael,
you there for a second.
I tell you what, you missed something good this morning here now. I went for a little plod. I'm calling it a plod because I'm
Plod.
fat. And like, you know, when you're running and you're like, oh, I felt the dairy milks, the caramels. I felt everything on it. And getting into it, like, just taking me time getting back into it. But I plodded along. I came back and I could hear Seán going, 3 more, 2, 1. I was like, what the fuck is going on in this house? And I looked outside again. I was like, the car's not here. I came up the stairs and Katie was doing one of your fucking workouts on the app.
I didn't know we were going with that.
Yeah. You were in the kitchen. I was like, it's fucking too early to be listening to this prick. Well, you know what? I had my little drink and I actually got kind of mesmerized by your little workout on the app. It's, you know, when you like, okay, we have the app and things do it, we give it out to people, but we never actually do it ourselves in terms of like, now I do it on stretch one or the yoga one we have on the app, but I was actually watching someone doing your workout and I was like, this is brilliant.
It's a mad thing seeing it because like, even especially during lockdowns and stuff where I was doing everything solely online with my boot camp and Castleknock, and I'd send them different workouts and stuff. And there'd be like the odd time I got a picture of like of myself on their TV and they're like, you know, about to do a Coach Seán workout. And I was just like, this is weird.
Yeah. No, I have to say, it was strange. I was like, what's he doing here? And then I come up and you were just on the telly. I was like, fuck.
Not to our own horn that, but a lot of the workouts, like the strength training is very similar to what I do. And I would do a lot of the mini workouts, like definitely exercises from it, like the knee exercises and stuff like that, and then definitely for the Achilles and all the rest, just for like if I'm in the gym a little bit earlier or staying a little bit later or on between sessions, I definitely just 10-15 minutes kind of blast those things out. But yeah, no, I've honestly, hands up, I can't say I have. I've never followed my own follow along workout on the TV screen, so I'm a bit thrown back now. But I was hearing myself come up the stairs there as well.
Yeah, no, it was very good. No, I have to say, and it was two. There was one kind of a HIIT workout, and then there was a runner's stretching, and kind of stability work. And I was actually looking at it going, oh, I should probably do this.
Yes, I'm thinking that I need to start following along myself.
Yeah, and Rachael, you were actually training Katie, so it was an Any Given Training Day sandwich I was having this morning for breakfast, and she was giving out about both coaches because she had to work hard. So look, it's a job well done. The app is working. We're training people.
Good to hear. Rachel, how, before we get the intro for this week's podcast, you've been doing a lot of training of coaches online in terms of not just the online training community, but also one-to-one in terms of running goals, stuff like that. How are you finding doing your own running stuff and applying that to helping coaching people as well?
Well, it absolutely helps when you know, like when you've done it yourself. Because at least when you've done it yourself, you kind of know what people are going through. And even like, not just even from planning it, what to do, but even the mental side, like just understanding that, okay, you're maybe not going to do every session this week because something's coming up or you're just not motivated. Like even just knowing all of that, it's just so helpful when you're then applying it to someone else's program. So yeah, but it's going well. Like I can't complain.
And
hopefully we'll hit the target.
There's one extra little bit about the consistency. Katie's autism was kicking in here because she can't leave a box unchecked. So she's like OCD, just like, my God. So she missed the workout, but she got it done today. So she couldn't leave the week without ticking a box. But if anything, it just proves that even through coaching, through the app, through all the goals and stuff, like it maintains that bit of discipline.
100%.
It does, because like we always say, don't catch up on a workout. But like with the plan that Katie's following, she's aiming for a marathon. But with her, she just needs to build consistency first, because she's never ran consistently. So her program is just to kind of build that in, run 3 times a week. So if she misses one, she knows she can catch up on it once she's not going over that kind of 3 times a week. So from that point of view, having the communication and stuff is brilliant, to be like, yes, that one's okay to do. Maybe don't do that one. You can't do 2 days in a row, like whatever it is. It's great being able to work with her on that.
It's great as well that you're starting to build a base now, because I've talked to people this week. They're telling me to do the Dublin Marathon. They're like, I'll start in June, July. I'm like, why? No 20-week out, you got a 20-week program and all the rest. But start building that base now. So when you get to a 20-week program, you haven't totally crushed yourself, but you're good to go. So how are you working with Katie in terms of keeping that motivation between now and then June? And then are you building a 20-week plan then from there, or what way are you approaching it?
Yeah, like she was all mad into like, oh, give me the plan, give me the marathon plan, or give me a 5K plan. Like she was really, really eager to get started, which was brilliant. But I was like, hang on a second, like, I know you can run. I know you can just go out and do a 5K. Great. You'll get around it. But I don't know that you can do that week after week after week. So we even stripped it down, and like, it's nice at the moment that it's winter because there's not that many races. So she doesn't feel pressured into doing races every other weekend. So it's just to get her out 3 times a week. And then there is 4 times a week every like 3rd or 4th week. And it's short. So that's kind of how I've been approaching it with her, is that when you're building the habit, and like you've talked a lot on here about how, motivation gets you started, but it's the habit that keeps you going. It's just getting into the habit of going out for 20 to 30 minutes. And the aim was minimum 3 times a week for 6 weeks. And if she can do that, well, then she can start building and start doing longer runs. I think that's really important for a marathon, even just for your confidence. Just knowing that worst case scenario, you can get out for 3 runs a week. That will really, really help you when you start increasing mileage and stuff for your marathon training.
Brilliant. We're going to go straight, before we hit the intro music for this week's episode of the podcast, if you guys want to work with Rachael, there will be a link in the description, working one-to-one with Rachael on online training. We also have our online training community as well, where it's a little bit more general in terms of there's 3-week mini progressions on strength training workouts and runs as well, where it's like different interval sessions every 3 weeks. There's a 2-week free trial on that, not with Rachael, because you're going through a full consultation rate and everything like that. And that wouldn't be fair on her to waste her time doing that. So if you want to work with Rachael or do the online training community, do hit one of those links in the description of this episode of the podcast. With that said, here comes the intro music. Let's go. So speaking of training and training plans, you guys both got 2 huge Ironmans coming up this year. Eric in October doing your first Ironman, and Rachael doing your World Championship Ironman in August. Today with the podcast, we're going to look at your training plans, and because it's such a daunting task and there could be different answers between the pair of you in this one. We got to combine the swimming, the running, maybe the gym work as well, the cycling and all the rest, and with the end goal. Do you look at that end goal and time set for all those 3 and then work your way back and make smaller goals? Or are you worried about, because there's so much ahead, that you mightn't hit all those goals? So you want to build small goals up towards it and then adjust your training plan as you go along? Or is there a combination of both?
Well, I'm just going to jump in first. I'm not going to claim that I'm doing a full Ironman, because I'm absolutely not. I think Eric is crazy. Maybe one day I'll hope to achieve that, but for now I'm sticking with the 70.3, the half Ironman.
Half Ironman World Championships, though. So give yourself a bit of credit there.
Yes, super excited. So that is in August, and I suppose with my build up, it's quite different to, let's say, if I was living in Ireland, the build up I'd have then, and the reason being is because you like to set yourself mini targets as you're building up to something big like this. So like, I don't want to go to World Champs and it be the first time I had tested myself or, really pushed myself in race circumstances. But then because I live in Australia, we are currently in our triathlon season at the moment.
Oh.
And our triathlon season is going to finish in April, which means I have this long gap until the Worlds in August. Whereas if I was living in Ireland, April would just be the start of the triathlon season, building in. So for me, I've planned a 100 kilometer. So I suppose it's slightly shorter than the half Ironman. It's kind of the classic for the professional triathlon organization. It's their kind of distance. So you do 2K swim, 80K bike, and 18-kilometer run. So it's slightly shorter, but that is going to be my kind of end of my triathlon season. So I'm going to put in a big block of training now, a few sprint races. I'm actually doing an enduro, which is like 2 mini triathlons back to back, swim, bike, run straight away.
You have to get back into the water.
After the road.
So throwing in a few things to just make it fun. Then I'm going to attack this 100K triathlon. And then go back into a training block after that, building up to Worlds. And I'm hoping that when I arrive in Europe, I'll get another race in and maybe get another 70.3 in a few months out, which I'll have to travel to. But for me, it's all about mini targets along the way.
And would you work more on your strengths for your best time or weaknesses, or just a balance of all three? Because I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, when you were doing back in 2019, the big triathlon, you were working with Tom, and you guys felt you were comfortable on the bike, so you kind of left that out and you focused more on the swimming and the run. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
And you felt like you struggled on the bike because of it. Do you need that 33% of each one, or is it different for each person, do you think, building up towards your half Ironman?
It's definitely different for each person. Like Rachael will admit she didn't do much running in the build up to hers because running has always been a staple of her training. So she felt, I can kind of leave that. Whereas swimming and cycling, cycling she really loves. Swimming was something she needs to work at. For me, it's definitely that as well. I like the cycling. Running, I can kind of take or leave, but the swimming I just hate. I'm just bad at it. So
well, at least you get out of the way first, unless you're doing what Rachel's doing.
Yeah, so there's a couple of theories on it, and a lot of people are like, oh, you could put in all this effort into the swimming and you're only going to save 5 minutes overall. When you look at time saved per kilometer or whatever you're going to look at, then when you get on the bike, like 180 kilometers, there's a lot of time to be made up there if you're really good on the bike. So, it's people say focus on the cycling more because that's where you can make up most time. Running second, swimming third. Whereas in my head, I'm kind of like swimming because one, I don't want to drown. And there's an element of confidence. Like if it's confident that I know I can do a 5K, I can swim for 5 kilometers, get out of the water and have a good day. Then I want to know I have a strong bike because I'll be happy, I'll be powered, I'll be energized. And then it's about taking time off. And once I get off the bike, then you have what's known as the IronMan shuffle. Nobody runs, everyone shuffles because you're in a bad way by the time you get there. Then I'm already like marathon. Yeah, I've been here before. Obviously not this tired while starting it, but like for me, the running element is just a case of maintaining, doing the odds, the regular Joe Soap stuff, the intervals, the long run on the Sunday mixed with a bit of bike to run, so you get used to that feeling. But yeah, so it kind of depends on the person, but I'm going to go with consistency. And there's actually something Rachael said to me, and something I'm trying to stick at is, even though I hate the swimming, I'm just going. And my training program saying, like, this swim session is a 1.9 kilometer training session, a 300 meter warm up with this. I'm just going and I'm doing 6 lengths and taking a break, doing 6 lengths, taking a break, just until I get the motivation to go and start doing kick drills, bilateral breathing, start getting into all the drills. For me, it's just a case of showing up at the minute, doing 20, 30 minutes, something that's enjoyable, that's manageable, and then just build a consistency in the water. And the body will look after the rest. It'll start to get used to it, so, and but that's it. For me, it's all baby steps at the minute.
which is mad because it's pretty much the exact same thing Rachael said she's doing for Katie for the running. It's just, and that's the mad thing. Like you expect me to hear like world championships like you're doing or just insane long distance that you're doing, Eric. You're like, well, what's the secret? What's that little trick, or what's that little, they're getting more out of it that the person that's only starting off running or cycling, isn't it? It's like, no, it's just it's still the same. It's still building your consistency. There's nothing really, unless I'm wrong, Rachael or Eric, there's nothing really kind of, it's just slowly building up and having those little goals throughout it, as opposed to a special little trick or something that others don't know about.
Yeah, like consistency is so important. And that's the reason why I can run less and still have one of the I had the fastest run at the 70.3 I did. And even in the, I'm currently doing the state sprint championships, or the sprint series. And even against the girls who specialize in the quicker one, the shorter triathlon, so it tends to be quicker because it's only 5K, I can still match them all in the run, despite not run training, because I've just done it year after year for so long. And that's just an example of, pure consistency, that I mightn't have always trained extremely hard or put in huge mileage, but I've always run.
Awesome.
I've always done something. And that for me is just going to get me through to August. It's just consistency. Even if you're having a bad session, or, maybe you're pretty tired one week, you're still getting out, you're still going to do something. And like as Eric said, if you're in the water and you've no motivation, just do whatever. I got in on Friday, didn't really want to be in the pool. I just did 7 by 400 meters. So I just kind of varied it. I used my fins to start off with, because when you put fins on your feet, you feel really, really quick. So I started off with that just so that I could feel really good in the water. And then I just changed it up every 400 meters. But if that's just 2 laps and then you change it, you're still getting out and doing something. And I think that's the key then for when you start upping the intensity, that your body knows that, okay, well, I can handle this. I've been training away, and it's more enjoyable when you're not in pain doing it.
100%. Yeah, you're giving yourself a fair bit of time to build up to it. But speaking of upping the intensity and all the rest, because you have 3 big disciplines to do, where, is it just a case of keeping it slow and slowly building in terms of building up your consistency, or where does recovery kind of come into it? Do you do 3 weeks build up, then 1 week pull back, or is it constant build? But it's slow builds each week, that when you do get the high volume of training, where you're going out for your half marathons on top of whatever it is on bike beforehand and trying to do it, that your body is used to those steady increments each week?
Well, again, everyone's different and every plan is different, but this is why it is important to have a plan, so that when your downtime is. You can't go hard all the time. And I think even the best triathletes in the world will tell you that. The Norwegians, anyone who follows triathlon will have heard of the Norwegian train. They're just outstanding at the moment. And they even do it on a 4-day rotation, where they do 3 days extremely hard. And then the 4th day is practically nothing. It's really, really easy. And that's just kind of on an extreme micro scale. 3 days, they smash it a day easy. Then 3 days, they smash it a day easy. Most people would tend to go 3 weeks kind of effort and then a week down. Okay. That tends to be the norm. I think, Eric, your plan probably has something similar.
Very much so. So, well, my plan for the next 4 weeks, with a couple of trips and skiing, is just literally just get the legs turning. Not too easy though. I'm being a little bit more disciplined in myself, particularly on the bike. Is I keep telling myself, what will my watts, or what would I like my watts to be for the Ironman, or what would I like my pace to be for the swim? And then I'm doing that to whatever point I get to a stage of okay, this is getting hard. And then I take an interval within the session. I'll take a break within the session. I'll lower the watts for a minute and a half, or do whatever it is. And it's essentially intervals, but but bringing myself up to a base comfort level, if that makes sense. Like I'm doing an interval to what I expect me to be able to hold in 2 months' time. I'm not going to that next level interval. I'm just going to that push, and that's my plan for 4 weeks. Take that kind of a rest and recovery week, and then my base is where I was working towards, if that makes sense. So that's how I'm staging it, particularly in January. Like, motivation is so bad. Like, when you're like, even getting back to, forget about the workouts, it's just the discipline, the life discipline. Like, the press is still full of sweets. I'm still putting on weight because, like, I know they're in there, so I have to eat them all. I'd rather throw them in the bin, being honest, and then they're no longer here. It's not my problem. But just with work, like getting up in the mornings, I've made the decision that at some point with the training volumes, there's going to have to be morning sessions. But just not arsed getting up in the morning. So what I've been doing is setting the alarm 5 minutes earlier each day. And although I'm not getting to bed, I sit up in the bed. And even though, and then have breakfast a little bit earlier. And then I found I've been getting up that little bit earlier, getting some housework done before work. So eventually just kind of just take it back 5 minutes, because everyone's like, I'm getting up at 6. I'm going to get a 6-pack. And then day 3, they're like, I'm fucking tired. I'm staying in bed. So for me, it's all about the little progressions.
And that 10, 15 each time.
Yeah, and a kind of analogy I like to use is kind of like melting ice. If you're trying to melt ice in the freezer while you're doing some exercise around it, you might change the temperature in the freezer a little bit each time that you do it, but the ice is still going to be frozen until you reach this point of consistency in training where it reaches 0 degrees, 1 degree, and then all of a sudden it's going to melt pretty quick. So for me, it's just being that little bit consistent, the 25 minutes, the 30 minutes, the 5 minutes earlier getting up. Okay, I had my chocolate last night, but that's better than chocolate and crisps and the dessert I had at Christmas. So nothing is neat, but I'm building myself up to February, to May. And you don't want to go the extreme either, because the body doesn't like the extreme. That's when injuries happen. Yeah. That's where you're into yo-yo and weight and you can't manage yourself, and you know, you're not resting and recovering properly. You're not, you know, there's a lot that goes with it. So, but again, that's the way I do it. Other people are better at just biting the bullet and getting up.
The way you were saying,
you should never come and stay with me then. My alarm, 4:30. I wake by 5:30 every day. If you check out my Strava, there's several days where my training starts by 5:30. It's not too bad at the moment because I'm still on summer holidays, but I'm back to work Friday. It's going to be a lot of 4:30 starts, a lot of 5:30 a.m. sessions.
How many years though have you been doing that though? Morning starts.
Oh no, like living in Ireland, I never got up.
Okay.
It's easier when the sky is awake at 4:30 and the temperature is 20 degrees.
We have a low of 23 degrees tonight. Like, it's so easy to get up when your mornings are beautiful. And when it's the coldest part of the morning or the coldest part of the day, you want to get up and get out.
How long, like, not even from a tiredness point, just in terms of energy output in your run cycles and stuff, because there's a question that's coming up now in terms of, like, Eric's talking about people changing their habits and trying to go for 6 a.m. starts. And I agree with you totally, Eric, in that people try and get up 2 hours earlier, but yet they're going to sleep at the same time. They try and force themselves to go to sleep 2 hours earlier, and they're not sleeping through the night, and all of a sudden they're up and they're even more groggy and tired. So if you do that 10, 15, like you say, Eric, and over a couple of weeks, you're all of a sudden get up at 6 o'clock and it doesn't feel as bad. Rachael, when you're doing your run, swim cycle, did you find there was a transition time to get more out of your training in the mornings compared to what you're doing in the evenings back in Ireland? As in, like, did you have less energy at the start because you're just waking up, your food different, or just kind of like, I just got to get on with this and just do the training at this time because it's the only time?
No, I've always been able to roll out of bed and get straight into a session, like, or a run. Whereas, like, my boyfriend has never been able to, like, literally fall into his shoes and get out the door. Mm-hmm. Whereas I literally have always described myself as being able to literally roll into my running shoes and then just be awake enough to go out and train. And not everyone is like that. And so from that point of view, it's okay. Like, I'm able to get up and do a hard workout in the morning and it doesn't really affect me. Like, I don't see any difference between that or working out in the evening. I suppose the only challenge is, for me, the biggest challenge was nearly nutrition.
Okay.
So making sure that when I was getting up and working out in the morning, that I was still getting enough fuel before. Normally for me, it's cycling in the morning because I can just roll into the other room, hop on Zwift. At the moment, I actually do go out pretty early and cycle outdoors here because, again, I'm so lucky that I'm able to do that. So if I'm driving somewhere, like I drive and meet a group and do intervals with them, I have a bit more time to eat. But that was the big thing for me more than having the energy, because I'm awake, I'm up kind of thing. It never really took me any time. I nearly find sometimes in the evening, I've always struggled to separate my emotional fatigue from my physical fatigue. And, being a teacher, my job is not physically tiring, but there are some days where it is extremely emotional. Like, you can't even imagine the emotion some days. And I would often find that I'd come home and I'd be so emotionally drained that I think I didn't have the energy to train. So I'd be putting off training and stuff like that. Whereas at least if you get it out of the way in the morning, it's done.
And I'd second that as well. I've always said, like, training in the morning is phenomenal because the day is yours. No matter what happens in the day, like that period between 6 and 8 in the morning is your own because no one's ringing you. It's near total isolation. But depending if you're like me, you'll make 40 million excuses to not get out of bed. But it makes a big difference. But I will get to that stage, and this is habit building from all the research, from all the books and the nutrition and everything. It's I have to start listening to the advice I'm putting into my brain, like and the research, and it's not going to happen this month. It's just not. I need it to get a little bit brighter, so I'm just knocking off the 10 minutes at a time. I suppose to tell people don't be harsh on yourself and be realistic. But like this is a 9-10 month plan for me. I don't have to be up at 6 in the morning this month. Like it's all just little consistencies. Rachael even has a good 8 months to go. Like, so she doesn't have to be world championship ready tomorrow morning, but
6.5.
Call it.
Not counting down or anything of that.
Call it 8 months. But it's she's already half ready, so it's all about tweaking. So it's just everyone is different, but for me the task is daunting, and that is whether it's the World Championship half or whether it's an Ironman, whether it's a marathon, whether it's a 10K. The task itself is always daunting, and the only thing you can do is look at a week. And as long as you just look at the next week or 4 weeks of, as Rachael rightly said, like 3 and 1, 3 weeks of hard, one of or I've got my trip coming up that weekend. Like all you have to do is look at the next week and what's the realistic plan. Get up 10 minutes earlier. Get 5 push-ups in, make something that's really, it's the act of doing that you want to instill in yourself and when you're doing it and making it realistic and achievable, because your brain is the best organ in the body. It'll give you every reason not to do it. If it knows it's unrealistic, the body will take over, and the old habits will die hard. So it's just take it a week at a time, really, plan your 4 weeks and each day.
Final question to Bodhi is on this one. Because you're talking about planning the 4 weeks, and you said build up your baseline towards the next couple of weeks, and gradually go towards the Ironman, or your case, right, to the half Ironman. And not to put you on the spot in terms of times or anything like that, but do you have a time or a pace in mind for like any part of your events? And working back towards hitting mini mile goals before then? Or are you like, I'd like to hit this and hopefully get towards the next step over the next month and then see where I'm at 6 to 8 weeks out and then set the targets for your competitions? That question makes sense?
Yeah, it does. So going into my first 70.3, I'd never done anything that long before. So I kind of planned it a few weeks out, particularly the bike. Swim was... I'm much more technical on the swim now. I got a swim analysis recently, and finally, because I've been training with no watch in the swim, because that's helped me with motivation. Just go by pure feel. I have not recorded my swim in a long time, but it was a case of just I looked up the stats, and it was like, I looked up recommended percentages, things like that, and just used other people's experiences to kind of help me decide what I think I could hold. And I ended up holding that. But for this next one, I obviously want to go a step above. You know, I've held the 190 watts for my 90K. I want to go above 200 the next time. But then I'm kind of thinking, well, if I can go 200 by my race in April, maybe I can go 210, 220 by August. So that's kind of what I'm saying to myself. It's like, right, I've hit this target. Now my mini jump is going to be my first kind of big target. Mm-hmm. And then hopefully jump again before World Champs.
Eric, same question to you, but with the caveat, I suppose, because we talk about people doing their first marathon, it's like we've both said, don't go for a time, just aim to finish. Is that your goal, or because you've done different triathlons and stuff before, you actually have a better idea of what your time could be?
I've no idea what my time could be. I know what I want it to be, and right. once in reality sometimes don't match up. But I think, if I'm being honest, I've made a good start. I've made a good start into January, which would disappoint other athletes. But to me, 3 training sessions a week, be it a run, it's a good start, just good foundations. You know, the habits are starting to come in. I can feel the motivation coming back. So I'm going to get, I think it's going to be a good one. Finish, obviously, is the goal. Finish is the goal. It has to not have an 11 in it in the hours. It has to stay 10 something. And that's the goal. I'm a big fan of saying my goal is to finish, but it would hurt me. I wanted to say 10 something. I don't care if it's 59, but 10 something. And that's going to take a huge effort. That is going to take huge effort. That's a 5.5 hour half Ironman, which is a decent standard, and doing it twice. So, it's going to be hard, but I equally need that push to go. I need to hold this watts if I want that time. And that's now my training goal. I need to swim at this pace, and that's my training goal, and get beyond it. Because if it wasn't my first long distance, whether be it run or cycle, Mizzen to mile, you know, I've learned a little bit. The only thing I'm kind of unfamiliar with is the water, but it's more predictable. Funny enough, it is a bit more predictable, because once you know what pace you can hold, you can just tip away at that. You might get the odd kick in the head or whatever, but apart from that, it's pretty gonna know. You kind of know what you're in for. But I kind of have to get a little bit aggressive with I suppose my expectations. As you said, it was the first one, you'd just be like, nah, just finish it, great achievement, get a medal. But this one, it's kind of, it actually started with the cycle, when I kind of felt like after a week of high volume, I was getting better, right? As other people were failing, I was getting stronger. So for me, that it's kind of instilled a little bit of grit in me that I probably haven't had in a long time. So and using that kind of aggression towards it, getting angry with it, getting those watts up, you know, working on the FTPs you've heard me and Rachael talking about. So, you know, and it is about percentages. And Rachael said you go with 80% or 70% of your FTP for the Ironman. So my aim is, how high can I get that FPT before I have to say, well, 70% of it is this. So,
can you quickly go through FTP? Sorry, just for those.
It's your tempo pace. It's your tempo pace. It's kind of like your, I suppose tempo is probably the equivalent, but it's in cycling, it's the max power you can cycle at for an hour.
That's always testing you for, I saw Eric, you did that a couple of weeks ago when you got back into Swift. You went for that the first time, so you had certain stages to build up towards what your estimated FTP was, maybe, or to just go flat out? Your
so it's they estimate your FTP based on what you can get in the power over a period of time. It's kind of like doing the beep test, you know, it's just every minute the beep happens and you just have to hold the power until it beeps again, and it just goes up. It never comes down. So and based off that, then they do a predicted kind of FTP, or what you can hold as your upper limit. But on day one of the year, I'd say if I did that again in 4 weeks, I'm going to add probably 50 watts onto it. You know, it can build quickly. And then you kind of have to be tailored then to build it that good bit higher down. That's where the aggression comes in, the grit comes in to get through the minutes and see where you are. But it's, again, once you get a new FTP, you can alternate your training sessions, your percentages are higher. So it never gets easier. And this is the important thing to tell people. And I don't know, Rachel, you might agree or disagree, but because you're training off an FTP, a power, when you get better, your training sessions bump up a percentage. So it never gets easier. You just get faster. And that grit, then you just need that grit and aggression to keep the, like if you were used to suffering from day one, you will suffer through. You won't know any different. It was the same when I did the military training. I was kind of chubby going in. I suffered from day one. When they added on the backpack, the rifle, the rocket launcher, the helmet, the whole lot, I still did. All I knew was suffering. So I just mongo along, and everyone was like, "How is he doing this?" Because all I knew was that ability to keep going and keep going and keep going until eventually you get there, and then they tell you to keep going further, and like, fuck, so. Suffering has always been there, and the ability to keep suffering. So you just get faster. You're able to carry more. You're able to do more. But that pain, like those who think, when does this get easier? It doesn't really. It gets more enjoyable when you start reaching different targets. Would you agree, Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like you're still putting in the best effort you can give.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it just, when you see a time, like when you do the 5K, Seán, it's suffering.
Yes.
But what makes it enjoyable is seeing 1959. But the race was not, and it's trying to explain that to people, and those who want to be like Rachael, like myself, I'm kind of not willing to go to the length she goes to in some of the training sessions just yet. So, there's a lot to be said for what's going on behind the scenes and the mental battles that are going on, and the intensity of the training when it is intense. And you have to be willing to go through those mental barriers as well. But that takes practice. It takes consistency, small developments, and then slowly increasing the percentages to match your new fitness ability. And that's when you see great progress. And that's, there is no secret. That is the secret, I suppose, is small chunks and keep suffering.
Yeah, suffering.
So it's all about suffering. I suppose you guys have put a lot of your time, effort, and you're both traveling a fair distance to do this, to do your event. So best of luck to both of you. We obviously be keeping up to you which is on this throughout the rest of the year. Before we wrap up this episode, considering it was all built towards training towards half Ironmans and Ironmans, if there's anyone listening that is building up towards one of those, have you got any tidbits or advice for them that we may not have hit so far in the podcast, or are we good to wrap this one up?
I think it's important to know that you don't have to, like, on a hard week, it doesn't have to be hard for everything. Like, you can do a hard bike week and have a really easy swim run week. Then you can do a really hard run week and have a really easy bike swim week. So you don't have to, like, even though we talk about suffering, we talk about hard, we talk about 3 weeks hard, a week easy, doesn't mean everything has to be easy. I think people know that from us saying it with running, how important it is to run easy for, is it 60-70% of your run should be easy. Like, same thing applies to swimming and cycling. Like, you're not gonna go extremely hard for everything.
Or they could just download our app and get an Ironman training program off us.
On that bombshell, we will wrap up this episode of the Any Given Runday Podcast. Rachael, great to hear your voice in the podcast again. Eric, take care. Guys, thanks for listening. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.